There's this common idea that love is supposed to look and feel the same for everyone, that we all experience it in similar ways. But when it comes to twin flames, especially in the context of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, love isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. It's nuanced, layered, and deeply personal. And the way the divine masculine feels twin flame love? It's something entirely unique. Now, before we dive into this, it's important to remember that the terms divine masculine and divine feminine aren't about gender. They're about energy. We all carry both energies within us, but typically one is more dominant than the other in a twin flame connection. The divine masculine energy tends to be more rooted in action, logic, and structure, while the divine feminine is often more intuitive, emotional, and nurturing. And that difference shapes how each twin flame feels and processes the connection. For the divine feminine, love often feels like an open flow, a constant, undeniable presence that fills her being. She feels it deeply, intuitively, and in ways that are hard to put into words. It's as if love becomes a guiding force in her life, pulling her toward growth, healing, and connection. But for the divine masculine, it's different. He feels it too, but it's not always as fluid or obvious. In fact, it can be confusing, even overwhelming. You see, the divine masculine often feels twin flame love in ways that are quieter, more internal. It's not that he doesn't feel the intensity of the connection, he absolutely does. But where the divine feminine might express that love openly, the divine masculine tends to process it inwardly. He might not have the language or the tools to fully understand what's happening, so instead, he feels it as a pull, a quiet yet powerful force that he can't quite explain. Imagine trying to navigate an entirely new kind of love, one that doesn't fit into any of the familiar patterns or expectations you've been taught. That's what twin flame love feels like for the divine masculine. It challenges everything he thought he knew about relationships, emotions, and even himself. And because the divine masculine energy is often more focused on stability and control, feeling something as vast and uncontrollable as twin flame love can be deeply unsettling. That's why, for many divine masculines, their initial response to the connection might be to pull away. Not because they don't feel the love, but because they feel it so deeply that it shakes their foundation. It forces them to confront emotions they've kept buried, fears they didn't even know they had, and a level of vulnerability that feels completely foreign. And for someone who's spent a lifetime building walls to protect themselves, that kind of vulnerability can feel like a threat. But beneath that fear, beneath the confusion, there's something undeniable, the love itself. Even when the divine masculine pulls away, he feels the connection. He feels it in moments of silence, in dreams, in sudden waves of longing that catch him off guard. He might not always understand it, but he feels it in his soul. It's like a quiet flame burning steadily within him, even when he tries to ignore it. And here's where it gets interesting. While the divine feminine often feels twin flame love as a call to nurture and heal, the divine masculine feels it as a call to rise. To step into his true power. To break free from old patterns, fears, and limitations. Twin flame love calls the divine masculine to become the highest version of himself, and that's not an easy process. It requires him to face his shadow, to heal wounds he's avoided, and to open his heart in ways he never has before. But here's the beautiful thing, as much as the divine masculine might struggle with this process, the love he feels for his twin flame is what ultimately guides him through it. Even if he can't fully articulate it, even if he tries to deny it at times, that love becomes a catalyst for his growth. It pushes him to evolve, to become more authentic, more aligned with his soul's purpose. And over time, he begins to understand that this love isn't something he can control or suppress, it's something he's meant to embody. Another way the divine masculine feels twin flame love differently is through a sense of responsibility. For him, love isn't just about emotions, it's about action. He might feel a deep, almost instinctual need to protect and provide, even if he doesn't fully understand how to do that within the context of a spiritual connection. This sense of responsibility can sometimes add to his confusion, especially if he feels like he's not yet ready or worthy of that role. But it's also what drives him to keep growing, to keep working on himself, so that he can one day fully show up for the connection. And while the divine feminine often feels the connection on an energetic and emotional level, the divine masculine might experience it more physically. He might feel sudden bursts of energy, restlessness, or even physical sensations when thinking about or being near his twin flame. These physical responses are his body's way of processing the intensity of the connection, even when his mind hasn't fully caught up. Over time, as the divine masculine continues to grow and heal, something shifts. He begins to embrace the love, to trust it, and to allow it to guide him. He starts to realize that this love isn't something he needs to control, it's something he's meant to surrender to. And in that surrender, he finds a kind of strength he never knew he had, the strength to be vulnerable, to be open, to love without fear. It's a profound transformation, and it doesn't happen overnight. But every step he takes toward that transformation is guided by the love he feels for his twin flame. Even in the moments of silence, even when he's distant, that love is working within him, calling him home to himself, and ultimately, to his twin flame. So yes, the divine masculine feels twin flame love differently. He feels it in ways that are quieter, more internal, more rooted in action and responsibility. He feels it as a call to rise, to grow, to become. And while that journey may look different from the divine feminine's, it's no less real, no less powerful. In fact, it's that very difference that makes the connection so transformative, two energies, two souls, each growing in their own way, yet always moving toward the same love. As the divine masculine continues to evolve on this twin flame journey, his experience of love deepens in ways he never thought possible. In the early stages, much of what he feels might remain unspoken. There's an internal process happening, a quiet unraveling of old belief systems and emotional barriers. He may not fully understand why he feels so drawn to his twin flame, why her presence triggers such powerful emotions, or why he feels such a magnetic pull toward her even when he tries to focus on other things. At this stage, love can feel more like a challenge than a gift. It stirs up everything within him that he's spent years avoiding: insecurities, unhealed wounds, fears of being vulnerable. And because the divine masculine energy tends to rely on control and structure, he may resist this love at first. He might retreat, seeking to regain a sense of balance in his life. This period of resistance is often misunderstood by the divine feminine, who may feel abandoned or unloved. But it's not a lack of love, it's his way of coping with something so vast and unfamiliar. You see, the divine masculine doesn't process love purely through emotions the way the divine feminine might. For him, love is something that must be integrated through experience, through action, through change. While the divine feminine may want to dive into the connection headfirst, embracing all of its intensity, the divine masculine often needs time to make sense of what he's feeling. He may feel overwhelmed by the depth of the connection, unsure of how to hold space for something so profound without losing himself in it. And yet, even in his moments of retreat, he feels it. He feels her energy with him. He feels the way her love awakens parts of him he never knew existed. And though he may not say it, he's aware that this love is unlike anything he's ever known. It's not something he can walk away from, not truly. Even if he creates physical or emotional distance, the bond remains. It lingers in the quiet moments, in his dreams, in the unexpected waves of emotion that rise when he thinks of her. Over time, as he grows and heals, he begins to understand that this love isn't something to be feared. He starts to see it not as something that will break him, but as something that will build him into a stronger, more authentic version of himself. He realizes that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. And he begins to soften, to open up, to allow love to flow in ways he never did before. This phase is marked by small but meaningful shifts. Maybe he starts to communicate more openly, to share his feelings even when it's uncomfortable. Maybe he reaches out unexpectedly, just to let her know he's thinking of her. These moments might seem minor on the surface, but for the divine masculine, they're monumental steps forward. They're signs that he's beginning to trust the connection, to trust her, and most importantly, to trust himself. Another powerful shift happens when he begins to see his twin flame not just as someone he loves, but as someone who reflects his own soul. This is when the mirroring aspect of the connection becomes clear to him. He starts to recognize that many of the challenges he's faced in the connection weren't about her, they were about him. She simply reflected back the parts of himself that needed healing, the wounds he needed to face in order to grow. And in that recognition, a new level of respect and appreciation for her, and for the connection, emerges. At this point, twin flame love begins to feel less like an external force and more like an internal compass. The divine masculine no longer views it as something happening to him, but as something happening through him. It becomes a guiding light, leading him toward his highest potential. He starts to take responsibility for his growth, not because he feels pressured, but because he genuinely wants to become the man he was always meant to be, for himself, and for her. This is when he begins to embody divine masculine energy in its truest form, strong, but not rigid. Protective, but not controlling. Loving, but without conditions. He steps into a role of co-creator, understanding that the twin flame journey isn't about one person leading and the other following, it's about two souls walking together, side by side, each bringing their own unique gifts to the union. And as he embraces this role, something beautiful happens, love becomes effortless. It doesn't mean the journey is free of challenges, but those challenges are no longer viewed as obstacles, they're seen as opportunities for deeper connection and growth. The divine masculine begins to feel a sense of peace he's never known before, a quiet knowing that he's exactly where he's meant to be. He no longer needs to question the connection, because he feels it in every part of his being. But perhaps the most profound change is how he begins to express love, not just in words, but in presence, in action, in the way he shows up. For the divine masculine, love becomes less about grand gestures and more about consistency. It's in the way he listens, the way he holds space, the way he supports his twin flame's dreams while pursuing his own. It's in the way he shows up, not because he has to, but because he wants to, because he knows that this love is worth it. And through all of this, he begins to feel something he didn't expect: freedom. Not the freedom to walk away, but the freedom to fully be himself. The freedom to love without fear, without doubt, without walls. Because twin flame love, when fully embraced, isn't something that binds, it's something that liberates. It's a love that allows both souls to grow, to evolve, and to rise into their highest selves. So yes, the divine masculine feels twin flame love differently. He feels it in his own time, in his own way. But when he allows himself to fully feel it, to embrace it, it transforms him in ways he never imagined. It calls him to rise, to heal, to love, and in doing so, it brings him home to himself and to the soul he's always been connected to.